Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing. I'm Joe Beal, the founder and CEO of Microcosm Publishing and Distribution. I'm also the author of A People's Guide to Publishing, which distills what I've learned from selling millions of books over the past 25 years.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm. We are an independent mid-list publisher based in Portland, Oregon, and Cleveland, Ohio. We have over 700 books, over 25 employees, and we make about 40 new books every year. And we distribute thousands of titles from other publishers.
We started this podcast so that we can share what we've learned with newer publishers so that you can learn from our mistakes.
Or maybe you just want to understand the publishing industry.
This week, we are going to answer a reader question.
Thanks, reader.
Which is, where does the money go in publishing?
And I guess it looks like, based on what you have up behind the camera on your screen, it looks like we're going to talk about where our money went in 2022 specifically.
Well, our money is a good example of the money, and our years don't stray too far year to year. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is.
Where does our money go, Joe?
So interestingly, about 33% any given year tends to go into inventory. And we're a little bit more inventory heavy than most publishers because we develop books to be evergreen, so we can tend to go a little heavier there, but because we more or less know what we do this year will still be good next year, and we're thinning the pile year over year.
Okay.
And then typically about 20% goes into wages, give or take, depending on a variety of factors. And that's, like paying our staff anything that's like in-house in terms of, like editorial, production, fulfillment, administrative, things like that, And that, those are probably like the two biggest pieces, and then we have things like, we pay commissions to salespeople. That tends to be about 8% of the total in any given year. We tend to spend about the same on shipping costs.
Ooh, shipping.
Yeah, it can be a little wild on shipping. And then, royalties tend to be in the about 10% range as well, again depending on any given year. Can be a lot to those because of the nature of you pay out all your royalties every 4 quarters versus like your larger printing bills are diluted across like a much broader range of time, the entire year. The royalties tend to be the largest expense at any given time. And so that's, it's just like a lot of money going out at once. And then, we have about 5% of our budget goes to things like supplies, which is, anything from like boxes to tape to shelving to, carts to storage to, things that are used in the moving of books from here to there, and sometimes unfortunately back to here. And then you pay for really boring things like insurance, which tends to be 2 to 4%. You pay for taxes, which can have a pretty wide range, but ideally would be, well, I don't know.
Were you about to say zero?
Ideally it would, but like it could be as much as like 40%.
We gotta pay for that universal health care somehow.
That's true. It's true, but that would not cost as much as our taxes cost now. And then, you pay like some kind of like lease, building, mortgage, rental expense, which like shouldn't be too much, but like, in the end of the day is often like 1 to 2% because, you need a lot of space. And then you have things like advertising, marketing costs, which covers things like events. That can be, I'd say in the 3 to 10% range. Like that can be a lot. And then since you get a lot of payments through credit cards, that would be, I'd say, like 1% of probably your total income. And then, you have like smaller things like your phone lines, your professional fees, like website maintenance, dues and subscriptions, meetings, refunds, things like that. And so all in all, there's not a whole lot left for the magic business word of profit. Like most of it goes right back out the door into these expenses. And I think the reader question, I get the sense that they were trying to like figure out how to explain, because what we get a lot of questions about on the pod is publishers who are very new and they're trying to like court authors away from publishing via Amazon, because Amazon is very good at marketing themselves. So when they're like 70% author royalties, the publisher is trying to be like, how do I explain to them what it actually costs to be a publisher?
Yeah.
And so, last year...
It's not like we just put all the money we earn in our pockets and run away.
Right. Like, we did over $4 million in sales last year, and we also spent it all. It's just like, at the end of the day, it's not like you hit a magic level where you just don't have expenses anymore. Oh. And you could like play the game very differently where you're putting money in your pocket, but that's gonna like have reverberations throughout everything you do, so by and large the money goes into inventory and wages. And I've seen a lot of places that like strongly endorse doing everything as print on demand, digital printing, which quadruples your costs per book, but you get rid of the chaff, so you don't have overprintings unless you get like really heavy sales and then returns on something. But I like, it just doesn't make any sense to do that if you can sell even 2,000 copies. Like, it just doesn't track. Like, why would you do that if you don't have to, But at the end of the day, it's like, it's pretty easy to spend every dollar you make.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like when I was starting out, I had the misconception that being profitable meant being able to pay myself, but now I know better and see wages for the publisher themselves is part of the expense of doing business. It doesn't mean you're like unfairly taking money. Like, if you're paying out to the author what you agreed to and you're paying yourself something that resembles a livable wage, then yeah. And I would say, like, and this is maybe not going to be news for a lot of people, but it's the only way most publishers are sustainable is due to the incredible volume that they do, primarily in their backlist. 80% of their sales are going to come from their backlist of any healthy, successful publisher. And that, having, I don't know how many books we have in our backlist, like 800, those sales constitute 80 to 90% of our total sales. And if we didn't have that healthy backlist, we wouldn't be able to pay our staff every month. Like, that's the thing that keeps us moving. It's not our new releases, and it takes a while to build up to that. Okay. So that's, and I think that's the other part too, where like authors see a publisher that's successful and they're like, oh, they should pay better royalties, and you're like, well, you really kind of can't, because all this money goes somewhere. It's not like lining anybody's pockets at the end. And and like, maybe it is at some places, but I'm not familiar with these places. Like, and I would be hard pressed to conceive of a way that they would be able to do that without like seriously borrowing money from Peter to pay Paul every month, So at the end of the day, it's like, like, know your numbers, be honest with yourself, and like treat your authors fairly based on what you can afford. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub,
On Twitter at Microcosm.
on Facebook at Microcosm Publishing,
On Instagram at Microcosm_pub.
and here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.